We are back with Shauna Thomas, food and nutritional consultant to hockey players, hockey families, hockey teams, hockey organizations of all sizes. Shauna, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Aaron. Thank you for having me again.
Would this be your busiest time of year, just given the fact, not only the nature of the industry you're in, but just the fact, like, do all your friends, neighbors kind of reach out to you this time of year just for some general tips as we kind of, ease our way into 2024 in the new year?
Totally. I would say I have 2 times of the year that are crazy busy for me. January is definitely one of them. It's like that fresh restart, not only for hockey players and families, but I think just for everyone in general. And then the second one is September. I think that's another, for whatever reason, fresh start in school. And it's always after like a period of time where, you're maybe not eating your best, right? So after the holidays, after the summer, barbecues, outdoor parties, all of that stuff, people want to, tighten up. And yeah, so I get a lot of people reaching out to me at this time.
No kidding. And we were just talking before we hit record here that, my little guy just went through his first tournament. We're kind of going through this whole process with minor hockey. And obviously the thing that you kind of maybe overlook when you start this is that obviously it goes without saying, you've got to feed your child, but now you've got to feed your child within the construct of kind of a team environment. And that might seem obvious to some people, but the one thing you don't, or where I guess we're learning is that, your kid's not exactly thrilled if he has, a quote unquote, like healthy snack in front of his friend. The other kid's getting like something super awesome that may not be good. And I think that's one thing like my wife and I have talked about is, obviously you don't want your child to feel like they're being left out, but we obviously have, certain, things that we want to kind of be aligned with on a nutritional standard. So
Yeah.
my question is this: when you're working in a team environment, how do you sort of broach that subject so that nobody feels? I guess I could see how some families, like, if you come in and say, here's sort of the guidelines, and somebody says, whoa, like, are you trying to make me feel bad because I give my kid X after the game? How do you sort of approach that in a team environment in a user friendly manner?
Oh, that that is a loaded question. And it's true because you don't want to be that guy on either side, right? You don't want to be that guy that's giving your kids chocolate bars after the game, and you don't want to be that guy that's always like, I only give my kid fresh oranges,
Yeah.
and whatever. And I've definitely been that person. Like I was always, that mom that brought the homemade muffins and the oranges from Halloween that had the jack-o'-lantern drawn on them. I totally was that mom.
Yeah.
And I think it's a conversation. I think a lot of it needs to come from the coaches. The coaches really need to sort of stand up and say, hey,
point.
This is what we want to create for our team. And because it is really hard as a parent coming in saying, hey guys, how about we try this? Because if somebody doesn't agree with you, then, you're out of luck. But, and then you're split as a team, right? But if you're doing that snack rotation and you're the buzzkill mom, you don't always want to be the one that's coming in, with those healthy snacks. If everybody's going, oh great, it's Aaron's week and he's bringing in apple slices and I only have time to go to Costco and get a pack of Doritos. So I do think it's best if it comes from the coaches. And I mean, you can approach the coaches as a parent too and say, what do you think about this? Can we try a snack rotation with these parameters, nut-free, with a piece of fresh fruit?
I think that's really good advice. And I'm going to throw it to Ian here in a sec, but just to paint a really accurate picture. So on my son's hockey team, so we're in this little town, Squamish, and on my son's hockey team is a set of parents. They own the Sunflower Bakery. Shout out to the Sunflower Bakery in Squamish. It's delicious.
Ooh,
But guess what their specialty
lucky.
is?
Sounds good.
It's donuts. They make
Love
the best goddamn donuts maybe in the world.
I bet they do.
And so
I know.
And I feel guilty because after our first game, they were in charge of snacks, and like the mom, like we're walking to the locker room, and she's got 3 dozen like the Homer Simpson donuts, like with the pink icing and the sprinkles. And my wife and I are on this like no sugar, no alcohol kick for January, and I literally I walked past and said no. And then 10 feet came back around and I was like, I can't do it. I don't have the willpower. Yeah. So I'm like, if we're caving in, almost 44-year-old man, you can just imagine how hard it is on the little people in the room to say no to the donut.
Sure. And you know
So,
what?
but you ate the donut?
Yeah, you're not
You
gonna
ate the
make me
donut?
feel bad now, are you?
No,
Yeah,
no. If you didn't eat the donut, I have issues with that.
I felt so guilty walking down the hallway, just and but I couldn't say no
Yeah.
to it. Yeah,
Good on you.
You know what, though? It is really about balance. And I always
Right.
tell my parents that I work with and teams, it's not about cutting things out. It's not about saying, no sugar, you can't have this stuff. It is really about the timing, right? So, like, if you're in a hockey tournament, I would like my athletes I work with to really fuel their body like athletes. So yeah, I don't want you to have the donut before your first game, and I don't want you to have something deep fried in between your two games when you only have a couple of hours in between. Afterwards, when you've won the tournament, when you've put in 100% and you're done, go for that pizza party, have all the donuts, do all the things, right? Because then you can, and then and then you don't have to feel like, oh, this is going to sit like a brick in my belly, or it's really not going to give me the energy that I need. So it's not about cutting that stuff out and saying no forever. It's just about when, right? And
Right.
I like to look at it in that perspective, because then it's a little less, well, buzzkill, like I said before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I like
Hmm.
that. I like that a lot. So Shauna, you did say you were that mom,
I was
right?
that mom. I
Okay.
was
So
that mom.
what? So
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I want to know. I want to know that story. I want to know
Yeah.
that
Oh,
story.
or yeah. How did you
okay. Well,
transition from being that mom?
Yeah.
It's funny. So I've been doing this for a really long time, like well over a decade. And when I first started, like anything, you're really excited about this
Right.
newfound information that you have, right? So when I
Sure.
first graduated, I was like, everyone needs to drink reverse osmosis water, and we all need to like cut this out and cut this out. But as I had my kids, they started growing up, I was working almost exclusively with kids and families. I realized that maybe the issue isn't cutting things out and being really restrictive. It's more about, what can we add into our diet? How can we get these kids to maybe have some broccoli every once in a while? And so it was more about going back to the basics, and not restricting and not depriving ourselves and our kids and putting this necessary stress on ourselves and our families. And instead, really trying to create a balance, which is balance is such a buzzword as well, right? Because balance means such different things to different people, but really for your own family, figuring out what works. I mean, right now, I have three kids aged 14, 13, and 11 that are all in competitive sports.
Wow.
And we eat dinner at 4 p.m. or 9 p.m.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's what works for us, right? And we're constantly snacking. I have to have snack foods on the go. My oldest one now, he's like 6'1", still growing, and I have definitely opinions about protein powders and bars and shakes and things like that. But now he's getting to that age where I'm allowing him to have that, because he is demonstrating that he is trying his best to get everything he can from food alone, and he just needs more. So we're starting to introduce those sorts of supplements and things like that. But I wouldn't recommend it, Aaron, for your kid saying, yeah, just have a protein shake for breakfast, right? Because he could have a smoothie, he could have a bowl of cereal. Like, there's other options for him, that where he can get all the nutrients that he needs. So I think just over time, working with young people, working with very busy families with chaotic schedules, and my own, I've really learned to sort of lighten up a little bit, and realize what's actually working and how we can, add more nutrition into our diet to make our lives a little bit healthier realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I love the word balance, and you also use the word options. I don't take those as kind of just, generic throwaway words. I actually think those are empowering words, meaning, because I think a family and parents can feel, um, like a lot of things, you can feel you can feel stressed. Oh, these people seem to be doing it, and we seem to be eating McDonald's, a lot,
Hmm.
or grabbing a pizza. So I think sometimes that gives people, um, uh, I don't want to say a way out, but again, I think it allows them to say, yeah, we can navigate this to the best of our ability, introducing good things when we eat, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
based on our schedule. I think a lot of people, when they hear that, are going to go, okay, good. They're going to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I do. I think I think I just think it seems to be society these days. There's a lot of stress on kids. I think there's a lot of stress on parents. Parents put a lot of stress on kids. And it kind of works because everyone's so busy and everyone wants to maximize whatever they're doing, right? Um, so I no I balance. I'll tell you that for me, balance and options is empowering. Is empowering. It's not generic by any means to me anyway.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Um,
Hmm.
I wonder, like, I think one thing that we've kind of noticed as a household, like, I think that we've got a relatively basic understanding of nutrition, what's good or bad, the types of foods we want to get into our kid. And I think that's not the part that trips us up. It's the part of saying, hey, if we know we have a busy weekend or a busy sort of schedule, are we carving out the time a couple days in advance to have a conversation about, like, hey, like, what are we going to eat this weekend? And I know, like, earlier on, my wife and I, not to get personal, but like, I've always said, like, if we were ever going to get divorced, it would probably be over a fight over what to get for takeout. Those have probably been our biggest battles. We can't get on the same page. But so now when you throw in, like, but so it's like, but you gotta, we realize, like, we got to talk in advance. We got to map it out, because I feel like as soon as you're trying to make decisions in the moment, that's when you're probably more inclined to make not the best decisions. Is that fair?
Totally. Yeah, and what's that saying? If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail.
Yes.
I think it's really important to plan. And again, that alone, some people are like, oh, like when you talk
Yeah,
about
it's
meal
daunting.
planning or whatever, it's like,
Yeah.
no, but it's the hockey parent math, right? So I just did this weekend. My son had a tournament and he had some early morning games, which was crazy because he's 14. And I was like, haven't we done this? Aren't we done with the early morning games? But anyway, but you have to count backwards, right? So we're thinking, okay, you have a game at 9, so we have to be there at 8, which means we're leaving at 7, which means you have to eat at this time. And then if you have 3 hours before you eat, then you can eat, all
Oh
the
man.
protein and the fiber and the fat and the stuff. But if you only have 1 hour because you're not hungry when you first wake up and you're eating in the car, then we're just going to focus on carbs. And it can get really confusing and stressful. But when you know the basic principles about what to eat and when, which I believe we covered, last year in the podcast, and I can go over it really quickly now. But when you have those really, really basic principles, it makes it so simple. So, I mean, the math has to be done regardless, right? Even if you only
Right.
have one hockey game. So, my son has a game tonight
Yeah.
at 8:40. He has to be there at 7:40, which means we're leaving at 6:40. So, he'll eat dinner probably around 6, and that gives him plenty of time to digest. So, when you have 3 or 4 hours before a game, your body has time to digest protein, fat, and fiber. So you can basically have that really good pregame meal. That can be spaghetti and meatballs. It can be a breakfast for dinner. It can be, chicken and broccoli and rice. It can be whatever. Obviously I'm going to lean towards some, healthier options. I'm not going to have like pizza and, a burger and fries. Um, but those 3 to 4 hours, that window is great if you have it, because you can really make a really good dinner. Even if it's a chicken wrap, even if you have to go through the drive-through or you go to Subway or whatever it is, you
Mm.
have that time to digest. As you get closer to game time, though, you want to start focusing more on carbohydrates and less on protein and fiber, because your body can digest carbs really easily and really quickly. So you need
Interesting.
1 hour.
I thought it was
Yeah.
the opposite.
So
That's great intel.
yeah. So if you have, say, because I know a lot of people are like, kids especially are like protein. They're all about protein, right? And so they want to have like a steak before they get on the ice. But really, your body needs a lot longer to digest that. And it can sit in your belly like a brick. And then your body doesn't know whether to focus on digestion or performance. And it can actually hinder both. So,
Got
you're
it.
not going to skate as fast as you can. You're not going to have as much focus. Plus, you could have some stomach cramps, some muscle cramps, right? So really, carbs are key when we're talking about energy.
Sorry, Shauna, just for I'm thinking back to my two boys and me personally. My wife would say we're all picky eaters.
Okay.
Um, and as I've gotten older, as I've gotten older, my palate has increased, like trying different things, eating all kinds of different food, eating way less red meat, that sort of stuff. It's kind of happened naturally, but I would throw pickiness into also being, and this was my two boys specifically. I would say they had, um, like when they were younger, like texture of food, like they didn't,
Hmm.
like, so it was like, I'm not sure if they didn't like it or they didn't like the, like I
The
say, the kind of,
texture.
yeah,
Hmm.
when they ate it, when they put it into their mouth, and how that, how that felt, I guess. And so, is it you just do it like just try as much, as often, as early as you can, or is it, you mentioned smoothies earlier. That's what
Hmm.
sparked that for me. Or do we hide it? Do we hide it in other foods? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
ideas there?
Well, yeah, I used to call this the cottage cheese problem because lots of kids find cottage cheese, like the texture really gross, but they love dairy and like other cheeses,
Right.
right? So the
Great
flavor,
example.
they love the flavor,
Right.
hate the texture. And so as a parent, I'm the 50-50 approach. So you can definitely hide stuff, especially when they're younger,
Mm,
right? It doesn't work so much when they're older. You can put
right.
spinach in the smoothie, and someone who's 13 or older is going to know there's spinach in their smoothie.
Yeah.
But if you give it to a kid who's 5 or 6 and you call it a Hulk smoothie as well, then you're selling it. So that's great. So you can
That's
definitely
great.
hide things. Yeah, you can 50-50 hide things, or you have to keep giving
Yeah.
kids the opportunity to try new things. It takes, I believe the last time I checked, it was something like 11 tries of a new food before a kid will maybe even try it or like it.
Wow.
So imagine 11 tries. So you're putting broccoli in front of a kid 7 times, 8 times, and you can't give up. You have to keep trying because
That's great
eventually they're
advice.
going to say, "Oh, you know what? This isn't so bad." Right?
Yeah.
And that'll be that, like, you want to just like throw a parade or whatever, because they finally did it. But
Yeah.
it's a combination. It's a combination because if you hide everything, they're going to think vegetables don't exist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you never hide anything, then maybe they won't be getting the nutrients you want them to get. So yeah, it's definitely a combo there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Mm.
I've got a question. So
We're
we're
just firing questions at you.
I know.
I know. I
I love
feel
it.
Rapid fire. I
well.
love it.
This is
Yeah.
good. Like I said, I'm living it right now, and
Yeah.
so one of the strategies, and this isn't like we're not that smart, but is that if possible, the snacks where you can make like a batch and so you're not
Yeah.
Right.
redoing it, like that's easy, right? So for example, once a week I'll make a huge batch of steel cut oatmeal with apples, and then it's in the fridge and we can grab it, and if it's for a little guy we can spruce it up with fun stuff, or else um yeah, I don't look like this by accident. It's a lot of work. So
Noted.
yeah. Um, and also note that Ian's comment about being a picky eater, like we took Ian to Finland last year, and it was like an Anthony Bourdain episode, like just going around watching him sort of consume the different foods and stuff like that. Total aside, but
It's true. Yeah.
so
Totally.
let's start with we haven't entered into the super early mornings before school starts part, but I know that I'm sure a lot of our listeners, they're in that with their children. So let's maybe use
Mhm.
that as an example. What would be some things or highly recommended options that you would give families to say, hey, when you're in a pinch in the morning, here's something that you can, whether you do it in advance or not, but just to keep it low barrier, easy to access nutrition.
Yeah, that is a good one because some of these hockey mornings are really early, right? And like I was saying, you don't want to have anything too heavy too quickly, right? Or too close to activity, because they're just not going to get the energy they need from it. And a lot of young kids aren't hungry when they first get out of bed, right? They're still basically
Right.
sleeping.
Yeah.
And so it can be tricky. So, but I still recommend you give them something. They've got to have something in their bellies, even if it is just, a glass of milk. And you can do a pregame smoothie. A lot of times early in the morning, if the whole family isn't up, you don't want to turn the blender on, though, But a piece of fruit is the ultimate pregame fuel,
Okay.
especially if you have less than an hour. A piece of fruit, a banana is my ultimate favorite.
Got it.
Pre-portioned, pre-packaged, it's ready to go. Your body recognizes it instantly, digests it quickly, and can utilize that energy really fast.
Wow.
So if they don't like bananas, which again, texture, right? You were mentioning
Yes.
texture again.
Yes.
Bananas
Yes.
are a huge one.
Yeah.
So just pick your favorite fruit. It can be a handful of berries, it can be an apple, it can be an orange, whatever, like clementines this time of year are awesome. Whatever your kid enjoys, that's what you should give them in the morning. If they're not a fruit lover, then we still want to look at simple carbs. So something like a piece of toast
Sure.
works, half a bagel, even some crackers, even dried fruit would work. And I don't necessarily mean like fruit by the foot, but I mean in a pinch, I guess you could lean on that. But what we're looking for is sugars for the body, because your body sees all carbohydrates as sugar. Your body's going to turn all carbs, no matter what they are, into sugar, and that's going to go directly into your bloodstream. So that's what you want. You want that those quick sugars to give you energy right away. So that's what I would recommend, like early in the morning. Cereal, even, if they can have a quick little bowl of cereal, or even dry cereal on the way to the rink, that's great.
Can I ask one more question, Ian? So the
Yeah.
other one that I would say, and I imagine this isn't, it's probably specific to those families that, you maybe you're running from work, grabbing your kid, you're driving to the rink for, say, a game,
Mhm.
or it could be on weekends as well. But the scenarios where you're eating in the car, and
Yeah.
like, again, not to make it, but like, we're coming out of that stage of life where if I had a nickel for every crushed Cheerio in the backseat of our car, I'd be a rich man.
Yeah.
But now we look at that, so it's got to be nutritious, but it also has to be easy, so it's not getting
Mhm.
everywhere. And I'm just wondering if you have any kind of in the car fueling recommendations.
So three, I would say, of my
Ooh,
favorite ones. If you have time beforehand to make a smoothie, and I know we talked about smoothies and they may not be the favorite, whatever, but the reason I like a smoothie is you can pack in a ton of nutrition, a ton of carbohydrates. You can pick whatever fruit they enjoy. And what I always like to do, especially in Canadian winters, right? You can leave them in the car and they stay cold, which is amazing.
that's a good
But what
call.
I'll do is I'll make a big batch of smoothies. And so my favorites just like banana, peanut butter, and strawberry or raspberry. I'll maybe throw, milk in there, maybe some oats, maybe a handful of spinach. And then I pour half of it out. Great pregame smoothie, very carb focused. And then I'll add in some more protein. So I'll add in some Greek yogurt, or I'll add in a handful of hemp hearts or something like that, or more peanut butter. Or even, now, like I said, I don't recommend protein powders for kids really under 14, 15, but skim milk powder is a great way to sort of
Ah,
concentrate and add more protein in without it having the extra flavors and the colors and the artificial stuff, and the sugars. Add that in, and then you have two smoothies. You have a pregame, you have a postgame. One's more
nice.
carb focused, one's more protein focused. You can leave them in the car in the winter; they're going to be cold. So I love those for in the car. And usually, you have them in a container that's hopefully not going to spill everywhere. And the other two are my energy bites, which are just
Ooh,
4 ingredients. Love the energy
what's
bites.
in that?
So they're no bake. They are oats, hemp hearts, maple syrup, and peanut butter.
Oh,
And you
wow.
can swap out the peanut butter for a nut-free option, right? If you're allergic to nuts, you can do sunflower butter,
Oh,
or
I know.
like,
That's
yeah,
interesting.
wow
If you
butter or
had to
something.
ask me what was in it, like, that's an so sunflower isn't considered a nut free option. So because I mean we deal with that too, like it's
Yeah,
allergies, etc. So that's what else would be some other examples of non nut options.
non-nut. Well, I was just going to say trail mix.
Yeah.
which is very, very nut heavy typically. But you can also make a nut free option, right? With like they have dried peas and pepitas, which are like a hulled pumpkin
Oh
seed,
yeah.
really high in iron and protein. They're so good. And then sunflower seeds, dried fruit. Those are really great options. And for kids, it's kind of fun too, because you can throw in some dried cereal, you can throw in some popcorn. You could throw in a handful of chocolate chips if it's going to get
Is
them to eat all
popcorn
the
good?
nuts
How do we
and the
feel about
seeds.
popcorn? Is that okay?
I love popcorn. It's a whole grain.
Is
It's
it?
easy.
Did
Yeah.
you know that, Ian?
Yeah, it's great.
It's how much butter you put on it is your
Well,
challenge.
yeah. I mean, I'm not talking movie theater popcorn here. I'm
But no,
talking
this
like
is
Love
a
it.
great
air
hack
pop
because like
popcorn.
that's something like we've sort of designated in sort of like the treat category. Like it's for like movie night, and we don't like necessarily layer it in butter, although that's fantastic. But like that's great to
Yeah.
know that like we're not because that's easy, right? You can make a big batch of that. You get throw it in some baggies. Um, so that's a great hack. Another hack I'll just throw out there because we've experienced this when it comes to smoothies.
Mhm.
Um, I've watched our son. I've watched if we allow him to create the smoothie himself and participate in the making,
Ah,
he will consume anything. Like I've watched him
Yeah.
make stuff that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole, but he'll consume it because once he's made it, even if it's full of stuff he normally wouldn't eat, he's bought in. So like letting your kids be part of the smoothie process, I would say is a
Oh,
good
yeah.
strategy.
I highly encourage bringing your kids into the kitchen at the earliest age you can handle it, because it really is about the mess that is created in the kitchen as well.
Oh yeah,
So, but yeah, if you can get your kids in and make them responsible for their pregame snack or their postgame recovery snack, get them to make their trail mix. The energy bites are so easy for kids of
mm,
any age to make. I've done workshops with kids from age 6 right up to 15, 16, making these energy bites. And to be honest, sometimes the 6-year-olds will do a better job than the 15-year-olds. And they're like, there's less on the floor, but you have to be in the mood as a parent, right? You have to be ready for the questions, the slow time it takes to open a bag of something, the
sure.
mess that's going to be created, the cleanup after. But the ownership it gives them and how proud they are that, I had my kids walking into the dressing room drinking this green smoothie, being so proud. Yeah, I'm drinking a green smoothie. I made this. And
Yes,
if you
yes.
can get them to that point, it's fantastic. It's
yeah,
fantastic. So, yeah, highly recommend getting your kids involved for sure.
yeah. It's
Hmm.
I forgot about the dry cereal, Aaron.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a good like because I think I'd love to grab a handful of whatever Cheerios or whatever. It's and it's when the kids are younger, they're just grabbing it, right? But you're right. So that's I like I forgot completely about that grab and dry cereal. Uh, but I also like your idea of getting involved in the or how things are not prepared, but like because I'll tell you right now, we're my wife and I like I wouldn't just go and grab an apple. Whereas if the apple's all sliced up, for some reason, I eat it and it tastes delicious. It's like
Yeah.
this is the best. We've been doing this a lot lately. It's the best apple I've ever eaten because it's all sliced up. I'm
So
telling you. So
you're
so
basically
that
a
just tells
preschooler,
you
is what you're
that
saying. You're a preschooler.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a kid and it
Yeah.
works. So yeah, like I'm living that one right as we speak, no question.
Well,
So
I mean, it's like anything. If somebody's going to make it for you, it tastes way better than if you made it yourself. Apart from
Yeah.
maybe if you're, a 6-year-old making your own smoothie. But as an
yeah,
adult, if someone's making me dinner, oh, it's always going to be, taste way better than what I could make, right?
it's amazing. It's amazing.
Do you have any sort of sneaky hacks? Because like I just go back to the comment on the sunflower seeds. So
Mhm.
I think another one that we're learning is like I think we're all familiar when we send our kids to school. There's the nut allergy thing we have to be mindful of. But now we've got kids that are they're gluten free or the dairy free is a big one that we're seeing too. So like case in
Yeah.
point, like everybody's different. Like uh, I don't drink dairy or eat a lot of it, but my little guy is he loves everything, every milk product out there.
Mhm.
What might be some alternatives for those people that their kid is lactose intolerant? maybe some supplements for them that they can, or gluten free would be the other one that I point to that seems to be fairly common.
Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky. And I think for parents that have, like, if you're responsible for a snack and you know you have some of those allergies on the team, just reach out to those parents and say, what, give me a handful of snacks. But this is why I always love fresh fruit, right? I think I've met one child in the whole time that I was like delivering snacks and doing these workshops that had an allergy to bananas. But other than that, there's never been an apple allergy or an orange allergy or, dried fruit allergies, things like that. So I think sticking to as basic as possible is really key. And then things like there's companies that have these amazing, like dried lentils or dried chickpeas. I mean, there's always the possibility of a legume allergy, but it's they're out there. They are out there. Some of these options, and there's one that I had the other day. It was a dried. I think it was black eyed peas or something. But I mean, you can find absolutely anything out there nowadays, and they all come in these little snack packs and are available, or like a bulk food store or something like that is typically going to have a lot more options than say like a maybe your local grocery store. So sometimes you have to branch out a little bit. Um, and then, like I said, those energy bites, right? If you're using a nut butter alternative, oats are gluten free. And then hemp hearts are not a nut, like they're nut free as well. And maple syrup, I haven't met anybody allergic to maple syrup yet. So those tend to be a really good option. As long as you also maybe print out the recipe, just be armed and prepared if you know there are allergies on your team. Just say, this is what I made this with. And I always say, like, I have nuts in my house. We have no allergies in my house. So I just want to be forthcoming and say, like, there's always the possibility
When a kid's
that
coming over
a
to play
nut,
or whatever, yeah.
yeah, that, or if I make a snack in my house and bring it
I
to
see.
yours
Yeah,
saying,
fair enough.
like there's always a possibility that the spoon I used also was used to get peanut butter out of the jar, right? So you have to be very, very cognizant of it because it's a scary thing. And if you don't have allergies in your home, and then you don't know how scary it can be for that, moment. And so I think it's important that we take it seriously when there are, very serious allergies on the team for sure. Well, and nutrition is always evolving,
Yeah.
right? And that's why it really fascinates me and why I love to keep up with new research and science. But I mean, look at eggs, right? Eggs were good for you. Eggs are bad for you.
Yeah.
Eggs are good for you.
Cholesterol.
Eggs
Yeah,
are bad for you.
exactly.
Constantly back and forth and back and forth. And I love eggs as a protein source. And the great thing about eggs, too, is especially for athletes, they are one of the easier proteins to digest. So, you know how I
Oh,
talked about
interesting.
you need 3 to 4 hours, to digest proteins. Well, eggs don't fall into that category. So you can digest eggs in like 1 to 2 hours. So that's why, as like a breakfast, if you're making like an egg wrap, and you're pressed for time, eggs are fast, they're easy, you can make them in a million different ways, and you can digest them pretty easily. And I always say just keep the yolk in. Don't go all egg white. There is actually a lot of protein in the yolk as well. People don't know that. So people assume all the proteins in the white, all the fats in the yolk. And it's true, all the fat is in the yolk, but there's also protein in there, and all the vitamins and minerals are in there as well.
So Shauna, you mentioned you touched on this earlier. You said breakfast for dinner, and
Yeah.
right. So and that's a great marketing campaign right now for eggs,
Mm.
right? But you mentioned it. So for all the reasons that you just said, quick, easy to digest, all that stuff. So is that's just a mindset change then, right? That saying this we can have this, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think for busy families too, like
Yeah,
I always say, if you are meal planning, which I don't want people to be scared about that, meal
right,
planning idea.
right.
But if we have like our busiest night of the week, right? Our Tuesday nights, all three kids, three different places at the exact same time in their three sports, that night I'm not making a roast chicken, right? Like those are the nights that you need something quick and easy. Friday nights, typically we're all at home. So those are the nights we'll eat at the table. We'll have a nice dinner. Like that's how I plan sort of my meals. It's completely based on our schedule. But those quick nights where I need something really, really fast, it's always breakfast for dinner. And typically we don't have a lot of breakfast meats. Like sometimes we will have like a breakfast sausage or a pea meal bacon. We love pea meal bacon.
Mm.
Um, but we always have eggs. Always have eggs, always have wraps. Typically you'll have an onion or a pepper or some spinach or whatever. But even
Yeah.
egg and cheese thrown in a whole wheat tortilla, a quick omelet, and an English muffin. It's a great dinner. It fills you up. And like I said, eggs are easy, right? Like if we're making poached eggs, my daughter doesn't like soft eggs. We poach it until, it's the way she likes it. You can easily customize breakfast for dinner,
Yeah, I love it.
or just make pancakes. Like it's just I love breakfast for dinner. It's like I could eat breakfast all day long. So
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. But eggs as a protein source for nutrition for young athletes, amazing. And the same with like if you're
Cool.
going somewhere, hard boiled eggs, like they're just so portable. They're amazing. I love them.
Got it. Those are great tips. Shauna, as we sort of close here, I mean, I'm sure that as you've noted, I mean, you field a lot of different questions. Are you able to maybe summarize some of the more frequent questions and what your solutions or answers would be?
Oh, geez. Okay. Let's see. I think a lot of people, we talked about actually quite a bit of the questions I get asked. So, what to eat before? And so that's definitely carbohydrates. Focus on carbs, and quick carbs. Things that don't have a ton of fiber in them. So, an hour before a game isn't the time to grab, your whole grain, multi-grain bun or whatever. This is the time to just grab a piece of whatever bread you have lying around or crackers, fresh fruit, dried fruit, or a smoothie, something quick and easy. That would be an hour before. And then afterwards, we didn't really touch on, but um, after a practice or a game, we need to focus on nutrition as well. That hour afterwards is the key time to give something to your young athlete. And that's when you can focus on all of the things. So you want protein for muscle recovery and repair. You want carbs to replace the energy you just used up. And then healthy fats. And when I say healthy fats, I mean fats from eggs, dairy, could be salmon, could be nuts and seeds, could be, avocado. Um,
Omega
but
threes, omega threes. Yeah,
that's the good
yeah.
stuff, right? But that can easily be a post game smoothie, a handful of trail mix. Some kids don't like to eat right when they get off the ice. So establishing that habit is really important because the more you nourish your muscles afterwards, and the more your body expects that, you can actually prevent injuries, which is really cool because you're really nourishing those muscles afterwards. So it's just as important as the pregame fuel, that post game recovery. So I would say that's a big question, that kind of before and after. And then the quick snacks. I think people ask me that all the time. What can I make that's quick and easy? And for me, it's trail mix, energy bites, a smoothie. And if you're on the road and you're stopping, at a coffee shop or whatever, grab a bagel instead of a muffin. If they have oatmeal or a fruit and yogurt parfait, those are always good choices. There's always something out there that you can grab that's going to nourish your kids, and be easy on yourself, right?
Oh,
It's
thank you for
every
saying
one
that.
day at
Thank
a
you for
time.
saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day at a time. And it's before you know it, like my son's 14 and he's getting to the point, he's in high school, and you don't know how much longer they're going to play this sport. So, if you're stressed out and focusing too much on the stuff that doesn't really matter, obviously we want to nourish our kids. Nutrition is very important, but if they forget their pregame smoothie, or you go out and you have, donuts from a local bakery after a game once in a while, well, okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to make or break anything. It's just about trying to establish those really healthy habits for young kids. So when they get older, they know this makes me feel really good, and this is going to help me perform.
Shauna, so really quick, I take a lot of notes during these conversations. Here's my quick, my top three takeaways. One, plan ahead. The quick carbs idea, like I
Yeah.
thought that was sort of the opposite of what I was thinking. So that's a great tip. and you've greenlit popcorn, which is awesome for our household. So
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate you for that.
love popcorn.
And as always, like I said, I think we always focus on what happens on the ice, but I think that again, anybody that's listening, that especially from a parent's perspective, so much of the youth sports journey or minor hockey journey is all the preparation and how the parts away from the rink where it requires you to, it kind of like, it's
Sure.
like being a hockey family, like it's not a light switch you turn on and off. It's a bit of a lifestyle. Is that fair to say? And so, and
Totally.
what you feed
Yeah.
yourself and your
Absolutely.
kids is a part of that lifestyle. So thank you so much for everything that you do. Thanks for joining us again. And I'm sure, given the nature of how things change, we'll see you back here next year. I'm looking forward to it.
100%. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, you guys. I always love being here. This is fun.